Good morning, all. I'm Mary Reese from NJPSA and FEA, and I also have the pleasure of serving as the chair of the Board of Trustees of ArtsEd New Jersey. I also wanted to acknowledge the other board members who are with us today. Anne Marie Miller is our vice chair. She's here someplace.
In the back?
And in the back, Margaret L. is here. Dan Fatton and Barbara Moran up front. I thank them all for the dedication that they provide for all the work that we do, and particularly for the inspiration for this conference. Thank you very much. So I have the good fortune to introduce my friend and colleague, Wendy Lisco, who's going to be the moderator for this panel of experts for the next hour. We all know Wendy's a funder, and that's great, and we love that the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation is so supportive of the arts and arts education. But she also is the most passionate and most committed person in this room to making sure that New Jersey is the absolute best state in the country in terms of arts education. So we all have to give her a big round of thanks for that. I think it's only fitting that this morning, before she even got here, she tweeted or retweeted the Grunin Foundation quote today, which is from Georgia O'Keeffe. To create one's world in any of the arts takes courage. And I'm really happy that she's at the helm of all of us arts educators to provide the kind of courage that we need to do what's best for all of the children in New Jersey. Wendy.
Oh, it's really exciting to be up here with all of you because you are all the courageous ones, and I was really honored to be asked to moderate these four terrific leaders of bright spots in our state. I thought this morning's panel was really inspiring, to see people at the helms of organizations that if you want to move up the ladder, of influence, you need their support. And today's second panel is really moving from that sort of big why and how we're going to convince people to, we're going straight into the trenches. How do you make it happen? I always think of the arts community as like, if you open the window just a crack, we're all ready to open it wide and bring arts to our schools and our districts. And these four people have their stories that they're going to share with us. We're going to have some brief comments and questions. We're going to save 10 minutes for your questions because I think it's hard to touch on everything. And then we're going to close with the closing question. In your packets, you have a brief overview not only of their bios, so I won't go into that, but also they wrote up a little bit about their programs, about the impact, so you can read more about them later if you didn't get a chance to read them beforehand. So let me dig in and start with this illustrious panel, and I'm just going to point them out, and then I'm going to throw questions at you. Ready? Okay. Good. So we have with us today, and we have Adrienne Hill. She is the principal of Hedgepath Williams Middle School of the Arts. Love it when you can say that, right? We have Shauna Longo from Hopatcong Borough Schools. She's the STEAM facilitator there. We have Corey Pettit, who's with West Avenue School in Bridgeton, arts supervisor and teacher.
Well, I'm not the supervisor, but I'll take that.
If your boss is here, you just got a
she's
promotion.
Here.
Okay, all right. Implement that tomorrow. Okay, great. And Lisa Vartanian, who is the art supervisor at Paramus Public Schools. And I want to kick off with you, Lisa. You know, we have been talking all about data and how it's just an opinion without the data. Could you tell us a little bit about your story of how you were able to use the census data, past census data, to drive arts advocacy in your school?
Absolutely. So, good morning, everyone. To provide you with a little bit of history, I became a supervisor in Paramus in 2003. In 2005, the New Jersey Department of Education administered their very first visual and performing arts survey. After the school district submitted the survey to the state, Arts Ed New Jersey aggregated the data and published the report in 2007, entitled Within Our Power, the Progress, Plight, and Promise of Arts Education for Every Child. The report highlighted the status of existing programming in arts education among New Jersey schools, and it also made recommendations on how to improve the programs. As a new administrator, this was extremely helpful. In addition, I attended a meeting sponsored by Arts Ed New Jersey that broke down the report even further and offered suggestions on how to improve our programs. It was a work session similar to today. I brought all of the valuable information back to my school district, and we began to put an action plan in place. So in addition to modifying the curriculum and creating assessment tools for all of our arts classes, a dance program was established and modifications were made to our theater arts program. So in 2011, the Arts Education Survey was administered again, and Paramus met all of the qualifying criteria. In 2012, I'm proud to say that we became a model school in the arts.
Woo. So, Adrienne, I know you from way back when you were actually an actress, still an actress as a principal, right?
Every day.
And so I know you were an arts advocate from the beginning when you took over the school, and you've been able to get this title of arts school and arts integration. Could you sort of tell us a little bit of the story of how you made that happen?
Well, first there was a lot of begging, a lot of having this vision, knowing that the arts were going to make a huge difference in the lives of my children, and getting other people on board to say, hey, this is more than, you know, I was talking to the panelist earlier, like it's not fluffy. People think the arts is just this fluffy, go have fun. I was a Bachelor of Fine Arts major, and I remember people telling me, oh, have fun with your 4 years. But I was actually doing more rehearsals and things than some of the med students that I knew. But really, every time I had an opportunity lobbying with board members or people in the district to say, hey, I think this will make a difference here, and I think that I can get my school to turn around if I can get my students engaged. First of all, let's try to get them into the door. We had a high chronic absenteeism rate when I came in. I said, well, you've got to figure out how to get them back to school, number one, and I figured that the arts would be the perfect vehicle to do that. So we set out on a quest, not knowing what the arts capabilities and skill sets that the staff had or their openness to even doing it. I'd surveyed them. I started with them. And some of our staff meetings were non-traditional, and they were up out of their seats instead of taking notes. And it was a mind shift for everyone. And then I started with the students. What do you want? What kind of school do you need? There were no activities there. So instead of starting with just the sports, I started with the arts. And so eventually, my basketball team was participating in dance after they came from basketball practice, and teachers were willing to do things behind the scenes, and actually some of them, like my math teachers, were performing New Edition on stage. And so all of that got the kids so excited. I mean, they were screaming. You would think Beyonce walked into the room. So I knew that we could do it, and that was even before we did the name change. So it only made sense that I keep pushing to change the name. Our school has a historic name, so I couldn't change the beginning parts of it. I said, well, let's just add of the arts, and let's just see where that goes and if they let me do some other things. It didn't matter if they changed the name or not, because I had already made up my mind that we were going to do arts integration. And so we sought out to plant seeds and try to make differences, incremental changes. I mean, this is not an easy thing. And changing people's mindsets from being traditional into now you can do the curriculum, but do it through the arts. You're not sacrificing anything. It was a big shift that we had to make, but I knew that it was important enough to keep pushing. And so I just kept pushing at every opportunity that I could to get people to listen. And I wrote the resolution, and I just kind of said, okay, let's see what happens. And they agreed with me. And I think it's been helpful because they've kind of left me alone to do what I need to do as an artist. So as a principal who's an artist, you kind of are outside of the box, and you don't really follow all the things, you know, the way they set them up. You know what the end goal is, but you work within the box like this. And so I don't really see the edges, and so it works to my advantage in this case because I create things, dream things, and then I figure out how to make them happen. So.
So where Adrian had set in place sort of getting the art teacher and this arts integration model, you know, Shauna, at HOPACCON, you guys have been very focused on arts integration as well and STEAM. So can you tell us a little bit more about the why and how you got there?
Sure. I will just warn you, my mic is in red, so hopefully loud. So in HOPACCON, we started our process about 4 years ago, and we attended the Princeton through FEA Arts Integration training. And what we found was that we had a trend of from 5th grade to 6th grade, and then again in 8th grade going to 9th grade, of students leaving the district. For whatever reason it might be, there were a significant number of students leaving. And we needed to change that. We wanted kids to want to stay home, come to our school, don't go to the neighboring districts. And we found that the students were disengaged. And we wanted to, in order to increase student achievement, we wanted to increase student engagement. And arts integration and STEAM became that vehicle. And our STEAM program really came out of the movement to really get arts integration kicking off the ground. And it was a natural progression for us that didn't happen overnight. We're in year 4 of when this really all started. And it's a progress. It's a, you know, it takes a lot of planning, a lot of educating everyone, kids, not only just kids, teachers, Board of Education, administrators, to get everyone on board with this common vision and where we can take not only the kids' education, but the town, and to kind of bring everyone all together in that.
And just
purpose.
briefly tell us what you've accomplished so far.
So, oh boy, okay, okay.
Briefly.
So in HOPACCON, in the short, 4 years, we did receive the Title I grant from the New Jersey Department of Education for arts integration in our Durbin Avenue School, which is grades 4 and 5. From that helped to fund a summer program that we ran, as well, focusing on arts integration, as well as create a makerspace, fund part of a makerspace in that school. We're not only transforming the way the kids learn and the way the teachers teach, but also the space in which they do it. Because if you're not going to have a traditional classroom in terms of teaching and learning, then you also physically need to change that as well. So we now have a makerspace in Durbin Avenue. We have one in the design process for our elementary school, just below that for grades 2 and 3. We're about to unveil our innovation lab at the middle school because we felt that a makerspace was a little elementary for those grade levels. So we're calling it our innovation lab. And we are in the process right now of, we are very deep in the process of redesigning our high school. We've seen great results with the number of students. We were at, I would say, 40 to 50 kids leaving district from 5th grade to 6th grade a year. We're now at maybe 10-ish. And that's huge over 4 years to see those kind of results that we have. So now that we've kind of, I don't want to say we've conquered it because as we all know, learning is a process that never ends. But now our focus is on with opening these, and getting the elementary schools really kind of set and on the right path, well, what's that end result, the high school, going to look like? So we're in the process of redesigning our high school, looking at we are going to be creating pathways where students will be choosing and selecting majors, whether it's visual and performing arts, which will be one of them, or biomedical, biotech, or engineering and design, or future teachers pathway. We're finding what works for our population and the surrounding community area, and what partnerships we can make with businesses and foundations around us to kind of all come together. Our town formed a Creative Arts Council a year ago, in January of 2016, and that just shows the impact of what we have going on in schools and how it's being transitioned into the community at large, because you can't just do it within the schools, you have to get the whole community on board to support you and your endeavors.
Thank you. And Corey. So Shauna mentioned the DOE, and it was mentioned earlier, this $1 million opportunity to use Title I dollars for arts integration. You guys also are a recipient.
Yes.
Can you tell us, and this was pretty competitive, tell us what made your school ready and what you're doing with your dollars.
Okay, yeah, like you said, it was very competitive. There was probably over 40 some odd schools that applied, and luckily enough, we were able to get it along with other schools. We did start a project 3 years prior, my first year at West Avenue, and the music teacher came to me my first day of school saying, we need to do an arts integrated lesson. And I was like, okay, so let's do it. And it was just her, myself, and a language arts teacher. From there, we were able to create an amazing lesson that involved music, which we went into the language arts room and actually played music where they were dancing to the songs, creating poems. And in my class, we were also creating Kandinsky works that were related to those key parts. From there, we did apply for the Title I grant and received it. It also helped our school grow together. As a community, we started, like I said, with just 3 teachers, and now we've evolved to over 20 teachers on board as a committee. With that grant, we did grades 1, 2, and 3, and we had a visiting artist who came in. Her name was Queen Nurse. She was a storyteller, and it was to help the students with their reading and writing. Being able to retell a story was probably the toughest thing our students would be able to do. And she was able to kind of pick apart what our students were struggling with. The one part that we then took with our visiting artist was to then extend that into the summer program that we were able to put together with the grant. And during that time, we had several bilingual students that are now currently for the first time in a regular ed classroom this year. So they've went from bilingual last year to now in the regular ed classroom.
Awesome. So I want to ask, I guess, Adrienne and Lisa first, just in terms of some of the outcomes. I think one of the things we're always hearing is what's the impact, why are you going to do this? And if you could, alongside with data, you need your stories, right? You need to make it human. And I'm just wondering if you could share some of your story that exemplifies the impact of the work that you've started to do.
I can say, we definitely started with the data, but it wasn't the data you would think it would be. It wasn't the arts data, it was the attendance, it was the grades, it was the report cards, it was the teacher attendance, it was the discipline records, and we've tried to figure out how to impact all of those things through the arts. And so I think the one story I can think of, I'm not gonna say the kid's name, but a special ed, self-contained young man who, he could barely sit still for 5 minutes. The teacher was always saying he couldn't focus, he wasn't, comprehending, he wasn't taking in direction very well. He consequently got a one-to-one aid, but when I saw him, we had a huge dance performance One of my paraprofessionals is a professional dancer too. By the way, your staffing has a lot to do with this. How you hire an English teacher with a drama degree, or I do a lot of that. But the paraprofessional was running the dance program, and when I saw this kid in particular, there were lots of stories. Everyone else was like, yes, this is so amazing. I was crying because he was doing choreography. He was taking direction. Another student who was at the top of my chronic absenteeism list was doing behind the scenes work as a stage manager. He was helping to move sets and keep the flow of the program. So the impact was all the way across the board. We started with like 24% chronic absenteeism, and we've averaged 7% for the whole last year. So I can say that I can't directly correlate it to just the arts, but I know that it is. Our goal was to make it a school where everyone wanted to attend, where teachers all wanted to work, and that parents felt really comfortable having their kids there. We created this persona. We said we were going to be the best middle school in Trenton, and that was our goal, and we did it all through the arts, and we had a waiting list. We're not a private school, we're a public school. But it was great because the word was getting out, and so we still have one right now, and I think it's because people are like, oh, my daughter dances. We have a permanent dance teacher this year for the first time. I was able to talk to Jordan. Yeah, that was huge. And I'm sure some of it was because they were sick of me asking for it, but it doesn't matter how it happened. But we're starting to see people who are not in our catchment area. The students are supposed to go to their neighborhood schools, but we have kids from all across the city because they want to be a part of what we're doing, or they heard about it. We have teachers transferring in. So, when you look at the impact that the arts can have all the way across, with the ultimate goal being your academics. So you have to get them in school first in order to impact their academics. You have to get them engaged in order to have their academics. And by the way, this is a perfect vehicle for reigniting your staff. Some of your staff need to be sparked. They're done. They're ready to wave the white flag, and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, what is this? Let me try this. Let me see if this works. I'll give it 5 more years, 2 more years, But then you start to see people talking, their exit time is getting extended further out, and that's a good thing in most cases. So, it really has had an impact, and a lot of times you'll walk down the hallway in our school, you'll hear people singing, you'll see people hugging. The kids hug us every day. I mean, it's just a completely different feel, and we're talking about the kids with the high discipline records who are now coming to school, and they're like, I have my uniform on, I'm here, Miss Hill, because they want to go to the museum trip. We take big trips. I don't do anything small, if you couldn't tell, like I'm extra. But, so we want the students to want to be a part of things, and in order to do that, you have to be in school every day. You have to not be in my office. You can stop by and say hi, but you better not be sent to me. So it's those kinds of things where we were able to just keep planting seeds with them. You want to participate in this? You have to do this. You want to be a part of this show? You have to do that. And so it just kept building and building. And so our staff attendance rate is up, which makes our student attendance rate go up, which makes our parents come in more, not with complaints, but with support. So I think that was just one thing. And as I said before, when my basketball team, my entire boys basketball team would leave basketball practice all sweaty and go to dance rehearsal. I didn't have to force them. I didn't ask them anything. They did it on their own.
You cut the warm-up time.
Yeah, really, really.
Lisa, do you?
Sure. Well, to start, our Board of Education is extremely supportive. So really, that's one of the most important things for me. And we were able to take that data, and we were able to take the recommendations, and then we were creating an action plan from those. And really, when we look back at all the things that we accomplished, it took years of researching, of really finding the model schools in the arts and going out to take visits, working with my colleagues from other districts. For example, so many of you are here now, but Jonathan Harris from Northern Valley and Dennis Argyll, and going and visiting their schools just to see the best practices that are going around the state, and then taking them to your school district and implementing them. And again, it didn't happen overnight. It took years of time. And when you're proposing anything to the Board of Education, you want to make sure you have at least a 4-year plan and you've thought it through, because you're dealing with facilities and teaching staff and all of those things. So those were some of our challenges. But I think when you work really hard and you utilize the resources around you, it's definitely something that is attainable, and it's so important for our children. So for example, we knew we needed a dance education in our school district, and so I was able to hire a wonderful dance teacher, and she's here today, Claudine Ranieri. We hired Claudine in 2008, and we brought her into the school, and we showed her this room that was an empty room, and I think there were cobwebs on the ceiling, and we didn't have mirrors, and we didn't have a special floor. And so we said, Claudine, what do you think? And she said, this is perfect. And so Claudine and I worked together, and we created this plan for the dance program. And now we have Dance 1, 2, 3. We have Dance Honors, and we're really proud of our students. And last year, we had our first Governor's Award in Dance Arts. So,
Where's Claudine? Wave your hand, Claudine. There you are. Yay. Great. Okay.
and actually, when we first hired Claudine, Claudine was a part-time teacher because, you know, when you're integrating a new program, we were only able to start with Dance 1, obviously, because we didn't have it at the middle school level. But Claudine is the Pied Piper, and she goes down to our middle school level, and she recruits, and she meets our children, and she does special master classes for them. And the kids absolutely adore her. And so from there, Claudine is now a full-time dance educator at my school. And she also teaches our preschool level, so we're getting dance in our preschool, and we're building up with that. And that's our kind of our ultimate goal, to get it into our K-12 population. And she also works with our special needs students. So it's just kind of starting and taking that seed and then really letting it grow. And I think that's the important thing for everyone to know, that it didn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of time, patience, and support from your community and also from the Board of Education.
So I just want to ask one of you guys, you know, one of the things that we think about when we think of outcomes, and I know I always had this secret hope that, you know, part of this work is that art teachers move from sort of being the as we were talking about earlier, allocated to, you know, lunch duty and not, they don't get any respect. That was a good imitation. Did you get it? Okay. Anyway, to becoming rock stars. Has that happened in either of your schools?
Yeah, I mean, in Hopatcong, this is my 8th year in Hopatcong. I came to Hopatcong coming back into the teaching realm from administration, so I left the dark side. And, you know, when I walked in and I went for the tour of the school and they showed me the room, and there literally was barely a pencil in the music room. There were no resources in there. There was no real solid curriculum. It was kind of the standards put together in a document. And I said, okay. And they said, what do you want to do? And I was like, okay. You know, and to have that freedom to be able to build my music program, but then to see the support, and I had always believed in cross-curricular teaching, and I always, when I built the units there of study for my students, I was including all the other subjects, and I love when a teacher will come up to me like, so I went to teach a lesson today, and the kids already knew about it, because they learned it in music. I'm doing my job. So when the arts integration term came around the block, I was like, this is what I've been doing in reverse. So it was something I had believed in my core. And so for me, having that background as a music supervisor, I felt comfortable working with my colleagues. So this, to me, was a huge advocacy effort. And now, you know, our band program has blossomed. I teach music technology. I've got my own iMacs in my classroom. I've got guitars I'm teaching. I've got iPads. It was a pencil 8 years ago, okay? So it takes planning. It didn't happen overnight. It was you know, you've got to have a plan, and you've got to have, you know, take the time to do it right and know that you're going to make mistakes. You're gonna have stumbling blocks. But now in my schedule, I have time for arts integration, to work with other teachers, to spark their interest, to help guide them on this journey, and with STEAM, and creating authentic lessons that now, when they're looking at cutting subjects, I mean, my superintendent's back there, and my principal, you know, we're not the first on the chopping block. We're at the bottom of the totem pole because we've become so integral to the schools.
Of the cutting totem pole.
Yeah, the cutting totem pole. Sorry, yes, we're at the bottom of the cutting totem pole. We're at the top of the totem pole. Otherwise, you know, so that we're not the first thing that they look at anymore. And you know, all the other teachers, I can get out there and work with them, and it really elevates the arts programs because they see validity. I'm not just singing songs with my kids all day and having them tap rhythm sticks. It's not what they remember from their days in classrooms. This is the way it is and should be. So it's increased validity of the arts.
So Corey,
Go ahead, sorry.
No, you're fine.
and the rest of you, I feel like you're probably going, okay, they're making this sound like this was kind of easy to do, right? But there were challenges, I'm guessing. And I think it would be really helpful to sort of hit on sort of some of the major challenges that you faced and then how you overcame that. And we're going to answer this, and then we're going to open it up to you, so get your questions ready.
Okay, so some of the challenges that we had were definitely common planning time, and I know that came up in the previous panel. What we decided on was, it first started off, and we've talked about this before, was catching a teacher just in the hallway. And I received the kids, so they would come to my class, the teacher would be like, that was part of the group for the Title I program. What are we going to do with the kids today? Well, this is what I'm going to do. And then it went to text messages, group text messages, emails, group emails, and then it grew from there to us setting up PD hours for our school and having the teachers be able to be paid to actually stay after with the grant funding. I mean, that was very helpful. So the after-school program definitely was key for us to all be in the same room at the same time. And like you said, some of the bigger problems were maybe curriculum too. Being able to work with their curriculum and ours. Currently now, this school year, teachers are coming to me and saying, well, what are you doing in your art classroom? So that's where we're trying to go with this. We want to make sure that not only are we having art in their classroom, but for instance, like I'm doing a science lesson right now, the science is also being done in my classroom as well.
That's great. Adrienne, you sort of talked a little bit earlier about the fluff attitude. Do you want to expound on that?
Well, I mean, as Shauna said, there's so much validity in the arts. It's not fluffy at all. You're actually hitting higher levels if you use Bloom's, if you use Webb's depth of knowledge. If you look at the higher levels of learning, you hit all of that through the arts. There's all kinds of analysis and synthesis. You know, actually, one of my state coaches came to the school last week and talked about, he had been at another school in the district where a teacher, an English teacher, 8th grade English, was asking the students to draw something about what they had read, a character. And he thought that that was a low level. Why are the kids drawing? He thought they were going to draw with their words, but then he thought, well, then they started drawing pictures. And I was like, this is 8th grade. Why are they doing that? And I said, well, let me help you with this. Because from my perspective, I thought that was great. Because students had to synthesize what they had read. They had to be able to analyze the reading. They had to transfer the vocabulary into an actual physical object, and really just trying to get people to think differently about the same work that's happening. And so when I got finished with him in my diagrams, I gave him a good example and you know, expressed to him, like, you really have to change your lens with this work. Forget some of the stuff that you've known your whole life. This is the way it is. This is the way it has to be. This is the curriculum. You're not exchanging one for the other. You're enhancing it, and you're extending learning. And so if you can get people to move away from thinking that the arts are fluff and actually they're foundational skills that you need. When you think about students learning early reading and writing, they use pictures. You know, so it's not different to synthesize information that's in the curriculum, and you just have to be able to use it, and not just as, okay, we read The Hungry Caterpillar and now we're going to paste these little circles on and we're doing arts integration. That's not it. But it's taking it to a deeper level so that it actually moves forward the curriculum.
So I promised I was going to open the floor. Are you ready with that, Mike? Okay. Any questions?
Oh, hi. I have a holder. My name is Dennis Argyll. I'm with the supervisor of music for the Elizabeth Public Schools. I also oversee dance and drama. So my apologies to the panel group 2. In terms of arts integration and tying into STEAM, my selling point with my folks forever has been that the arts are STEAM. You know, arithmetic, reading, writing, technology, and science. It's all there already. And to teach them that they're already teaching art. It's just us. Miss Hill. Miss Hill, can I give you a virtual hug from here, please?
You can
Ms.
give me a
Hill?
real one later.
Absolutely.
I like hugs.
I'm one of those districts where the ratio goes up and the money goes down. That's one of my. So I would like Ms. Hill I'd like the FEA and JPSA to offer her an opportunity to share her vision with other districts who don't see their schools through the same vision and lens. And if we can just right? Okay? So, because they're the ones that need to hear the message.
Let me give you one back.
Sorry. The last thing is, I know Ms. Liskow earlier said this, and I agree that hearing the words of the arts is great, but I wish we could take that prepositional phrase out and give those kids in Trenton and in Elizabeth and Newark and Linden and the opportunity to have that experience without having to take a bus across town. You know, to have it in their neighborhood so everybody has that opportunity everywhere they go to school.
That's actually the goal, is how, to infect as many people as possible. I could only start with my school, but eventually the plan is to take over the world, So, but that's just where the starting point, but you're absolutely right. It should be available to every child, everywhere, and to every teacher. Because what a great opportunity to be able to, we just hired a music teacher. I mean, he has a music certification, but we hired him as a bilingual teacher. And in the interview, he said, well, I'd usually bring in a guitar later on in the year, but I wouldn't do it the first day because that, I said, why not? See, I'm opposite. You should bring it the first day because that's how you're going to grab the students into the learning. And so I can tell that he had been suppressed for so many years. Don't do that. You're not working in that capacity. Don't use your guitar. Don't use your music. And I'm saying, no, bring out all of those things inside of you because even if you're not the best singer, everyone in here has had a song in the shower, has had a concert, whether you were good or not. And so people have told you, no, don't sing in public. So you become really self-conscious about it. But here's an opportunity for you to take out all of those things that are a part of you already and bring yourself to work, right? We sometimes leave ourselves outside because we have to fall into this line of, no, I'm a teacher, I'm a this and that. I mean, technically, I would have fuchsia highlights in my hair if I wasn't a principal, but I think people might take that wrong. But you bring yourself in. Whatever interests you is going to interest your kids because you're excited about it. And so it's infecting. You can do it without money. Let's be clear. It requires money to have like big vision, big dreams, but you can start with no money because creativity is free. You just have to unlock the door and let people kind of run through it.
Great. This was touched on earlier, but I guess all of these changes over time, how did you keep the team together? How did you keep the staff engaged, doing some things that they may not have been entirely comfortable doing in an environment, especially in some urban districts where there can be a lot of turnover?
In our district, we started out 3 years ago we added 3 STEAM facilitators, and I am still one of them. So we started with that team and then some administrators. And from there, when we developed our strategic plan, it was a 5-year plan. We're in year 4, and we're already looking at the next 5 years of what we're going to do next. It was turnkeying. So, for instance, this year, in August, I did, with one of my colleagues, a professional development workshop on arts integration and STEAM for the administration. Then we took that and took it to the arts teachers. Now we're in the process of doing it for the other content area teachers. So, and then it's setting up meetings, lighting sparks, giving them time also, not just tell them. They need to experience it. They need to be the kids in the classroom So I feel really that it's important that they get that chance to be a kid in an arts integrated or STEAM classroom where they're actively engaged and learning through a new lens. So that's kind of at the heart of what we've done. And then once they see the validity, it just starts sparking everywhere. And we now have 5 STEAM facilitators for the secondary level. Some of us serve district-wide, and then we also have some in the elementary schools. But there's a core team that's just, even though there's been turnover and change in the district, if you keep that, if you make the plan and you have a core, that plan can go through. We had a big changeover with Board of Education and things. You gotta educate them. I'm kind of like her in that if you're gonna do it, you do it all the way. So I teach my 8th graders guitar, and they're learning how to play the guitar all throughout the year. And then I did a lesson on how they set up a fretboard. Okay, so why are the frets where they are? What's the mathematical and scientific principles behind that? And then I took them to the Martin Guitar Factory in Nazareth, PA. And we did the tour, and they saw the guitars being made. They got to play the guitars, and they loved it. So it's giving kids experiences inside and outside the classroom. They're gonna make them who they are and help them make choices about who they wanna become and what they wanna do with the rest of their lives.
Did anyone, it's sort of the sustainability question.
Yeah.
How do you, if you get this going, how do you, get past all the challenges that you will face?
I was
So-
going to add to what Shauna said, and you're involving all the stakeholders in the entire process, and that includes our students, our teachers, our Board of Education, our administrative team. What I like to do is once I've identified a school of interest, I'll bring a team of teachers with me, and we'll spend the day in that school, and we'll check out all those programs, and we get excited about that. And really, that's part of the buy-in. So once the teachers see these amazing things that are going on, they want to do that in our school as well, and that's part of the process. And I think it's important that you're involving everyone in the entire process.
And that was important for us with starting the STEAM and developing the maker spaces. That first year, we did so much research of seeing what are other people doing out there, and going out, spending a day in each of those schools, taking tours, talking with not only administration, but the teachers, the kids, because there's where you're gonna get sometimes the realer story about if that's even a word, about what's going on and how it impacts, is talking to those teachers and those kids about the programs. And then you take all of that and figure out, okay, well, what can I take from this and make it my own that will work for my community? Because each of us have a different community that we service in our schools. So you gotta find what works for you and don't reinvent the wheel.
Awesome. We have one more question from the audience, and then I promise you, these guys are staying around, that you can ask them later.
Hi, I'm Harrison Haney. I run the New Jersey State Teen Arts Festival, and we do a lot of different things at the event. We have professional development, a college fair, masterclass workshops for the students, as well as students get selected and nominated from their individual counties to go to the next level to present their talents and their creative efforts. And as I reach out to schools or teachers, they sort of give me hurdles or challenges that when I sit and drink my coffee and think about it and break it down, it's like, is that really a hurdle? Is that really a challenge? Are you just afraid of asking the principal for this opportunity? Because growing up from an athletic family, you don't know if the football team's gonna make it to the state championship. But when they do, all of a sudden, there's money for a bus. There's money to do this, there's money to do that. But where was that? So a lot of times that's what I hear. It's a financial hurdle, or it's the bus ride's too long, or we have to find a bus. But like I said, when you see it happen with athletics last minute, whereas I'm knocking on your door the first day of school about our event, and it's open to everybody, not just the people who get selected or nominated. So I'm curious, when you have opportunities like that to really get the students to go to the Comic-Con of Arts for New Jersey, how do we get those teachers to get the courage or to put those hurdles away and really see they're just challenges, they're not stopping blocks?
So Adrian, you were sort of talking about that earlier.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's hard for me because I don't ever hear no. I don't because when you're a creative thinker, you're always thinking, okay, if they say no to this, I'm gonna still figure out how to get it done because that's what I need to get done. And I know for us, part of the way we were able to do some of our arts endeavors and initiatives was because we have strong community partners. We've partnered up with some organizations who have the same like-minded belief, and they believe in our school and the vision that we've set out, so they will support us. But also, I mean, I'll sell everything legal under the law to make sure that I get my kids where I want them to go. So last year we went to the National African American Museum of History and Culture in DC. We took 8 buses not funded by our district. It was a huge endeavor, and my climate and culture leader who's in the room, you know, I said, okay, this is big. People think I'm crazy because it was such a big dream, but when you see the line of 8 charter buses outside your school, not paid one dime by the district, and to make it happen, and to see the kids were excited just to be on a charter bus. I mean, I probably could have just taken them around the city. They would have been like, this is so awesome, there are TVs in here, you know. But it's giving them exposure, but if you believe in it, you just keep pushing. You keep connecting dots, and when you're in a room full of all these amazing people, you talk to people, and you find out what they do, and you find out what they need, and how you can help each other, and then you support each other in the dream. And so, like, we're already making plans to visit Hopatcong. They're going to visit us. We're, you know, collaborating. I see some other people in the room who I met this summer or the summer previous. It's connecting all of the dots so that you can stay on course. And so you just, you know, you fundraise, you ask people, you support each other, and it's part of that planning too, though. Like, all of this has to be deliberate. It can't be just you wake up one morning and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to try it this way with the arts. It doesn't work that way. It really has to be the same amount of energy you put into your academic planning and instructional planning, you need to put into your arts planning in order to make it work.
So I'm going to segue us to our final question, and I'm going to let us go down the line. We literally have 5 minutes, so let's talk about one piece of advice each of you want to give to this audience about if they want to replicate what you've done or take a similar approach. What advice would you give them?
I would say be persistent. Do not give up when people tell you that you can't do it or that there's no money, because it's just like he said, they can find money for sports events and all kinds of stuff. Don't take no for an answer. And if you do get a no, find someone who will give you a yes, even if it's a small piece of a yes. Every yes counts to make the bigger, you know, the bigger pot. So take them all and then keep moving forward with it. Like, dream big, dream outside of what you've ever thought of, kind of throw some of that out and be willing. I say willingness is a big deal and a big part of how we were able to move the school. My staff is willing. They were so looking for something new and different that they were willing to try something outside of their comfort zones. And you've got to have your boards willing. Find somebody on your board who's willing, who says there might be something to this. Let me figure out what to do. Look for the willing people and use them to move forward, because they'll help spread it with other people.
I would say, really, to piggyback off of that, make a plan and make a team that's going to really start it with you. And don't just include the people that you know are immediately going to say yes. Include some naysayers. Because if you can transform the mindset of a naysayer, they'll help transform and make it easier for you to break down other barriers with other people. But really, really make a plan and be ready to change that plan 15 times, because it's going to happen. You're going to have stumbling blocks. It's not perfect. Our district's still not perfect with it. We're still learning and we're still evolving, which is how it should be. And sometimes things can blow up in your face, but that's okay, because afterwards, picking up the pieces, it ends up better than it could have been. So, plan.
Yeah, I would agree completely. The only way that it would work is if you do have a team. And like I said, I started with only 3 teachers, myself, the music teacher, and another language arts teacher. And you would be amazed how much we did just with that. And like I said, we've grown to over 20 teachers in our team. I would say try and align it maybe with your goals with your school first. See what your principal wants to do or the district goals, and go from there and maybe align it. And then you'll have support from not only your school but the entire board. And they'll probably back you when you're writing these grants, and find the grant writers if you do not have them. And also too, if you're looking for those grants, there's grants for everything. So whether it's a small amount to a large amount. So if that's something that you're looking towards, that's definitely something that's out there for you.
And Lisa?
Yes, I would just say just do your homework, research, visit those model schools, share best practices with your colleagues, and ask a lot of questions.
And I would also say there's something, and I think there's sort of evidence of this, right? It's around leadership. Each one of these people up here, you can tell they took on the leadership role, no matter where they were leading from. And I would say, I think that is the challenge we all have. We have to lead from wherever we are, even if we feel like we don't have the leadership reins. So I want to thank you all, and I want to thank all of you as you go off and on your journeys to make arts ed now for every child in our state. Thank you all.